Joining us online and are having any issues with your audio settings or any other technical issues, please use the chat function and a member from DPW will respond. Next slide, please. As Sophia mentioned, Spanish interpretation services are available on WebEx and in person by clicking on the globe button, which is on the bottom left of your screen if you're joining online. In addition, live transcription services are also available by clicking on the CC button, which should also be on the left-hand side of your screen. Next slide, please. Attendees will have the opportunity to provide a 2-minute oral testimony at the end of the presentation. If you are joining online and would like to provide a written testimony, please use the chat to all panelists and interpreters feature within WebEx. Please also note that if you do decide to provide testimony, your name will be made public. If you're joining us in person, an in-person testimonial option was included as part of the sign-in process. If you did not check this option, that's okay. There will be time at the end, depending on the volume of testimony we receive online and in person, and at that time you will be given instructions on how to provide testimony if you did not check that option as part of sign-in. We will not be responding to questions or comments during this meeting, and this is just to allow for the maximum number of comments to be received. DPW will be responding to common comment themes and an overview on the process of the solid waste management plan update, which will be on DPW's webpage by the 15th of May. All written and oral testimony received will be considered for incorporation into the plan. So now we will go over the background and purpose of the plan. So what is the solid waste management plan? So this is a plan that discusses strategies to enhance the solid waste programs and infrastructure within the 10-year planning period. This is a regulatory-driven plan. Therefore, the plan follows strict content and format guidelines set forth by the state of Maryland and will be submitted to the Maryland Department of the Environment at the end of this process. Just an overview of the plan, it is comprised of 5 sections. Section 1 includes an overview of goals, the city structures, and regulatory guidelines. Section 2 includes background on population, zoning requirements, and federal facilities within the city. Section 3 includes an overview of the existing system. Section 4 is an assessment of needs and constraints. And Section 5 includes a plan of action to achieve the goals that are laid out during the 10-year planning period. Next slide, please. So there are multiple sources of information that go into the plan. You'll see them noted here. There's multiple avenues. So we have population estimates, historical data, tonnage reports from Quarantine Road Landfill and other sources, city planning documents such as the Less Waste Better Baltimore plan, sustainability plan, and other plans, regulatory guidelines, as well as public input, which we will also discuss later on. We have broken down the plan development into 4 stages. Each stage has been accompanied by at least 1 public meeting. You'll see that we are currently in the final draft phase. We have had 2 meetings, including this one, associated with this phase. Though it is called the final draft phase, I do want to note that we are still taking and incorporating comments. So though it has final in the title, we are still incorporating comments as we go through this process. Next slide, please. So just some key events here. So today at 11:59 p.m. will be the cutoff for receiving comments and testimony, and this is just so that DPW has enough time to review and incorporate comments where applicable. So that is the first key event. In May, the draft will be submitted to the state. In August, we expect a response from the state. And in December, it will be submitted to the mayor and city council for formal adoption. In January 2024, the plan will go into effect. So now I will pass it over to my colleague, Sean O'Donnell, to give an overview of the current waste infrastructure and programs.
Thanks, Stacey. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for being here. So yes, I'm just going to talk a brief bit about the current solid waste management system in the city, and then we're going to get into the meat of the plan. So to start off, I just wanted to kind of define the solid waste management system in the city. So it's currently split into two components. The city manages the predominantly residential waste, the majority of the residential waste that's generated in the city, whereas the private sector manages the majority of the commercial, industrial, and institutional waste that's generated in the city. So waste from businesses, hospitals, schools, that kind of thing. So in this section, at the overview of the existing system, we're going to be focusing predominantly on the city-managed component of the solid waste system. But as you'll see when we get deeper into the plan of action, there are action items associated with both the private system and the city-managed system. So first off, I just want to highlight the 5 residential drop-off centers that the city manages. Those are shown in black on this map. The city manages 5. They're at Quarantine Road Landfill, Reedbird Avenue, Bowleys Lane, Sisson Street, and also at the Northwest Transfer Station. The Northwest Transfer Station also acts as a transfer station for both waste and recyclables, where waste collected curbside is consolidated into larger vehicles and sent either for disposal or for recycling. The city also manages, in addition to those 5 full-service drop-off centers, 3 additional drop-off centers for recyclables only. Those are shown in green at York Road, Calverton Road, and Lewin Avenue. The Department of Park and Recreation also manages Camp Small, shown in yellow, where wood waste is processed into mulch, wood rounds, and logs that are sold back to the community. The Department of Public Works manages the Quarantine Road landfill, shown in red. It's a publicly owned and operated landfill that accepts residential waste and waste from small haulers. The wind waste incinerator is shown in gray. That's a privately owned and operated facility with which the city contracts to send some portion of the residential waste generated. Ash from that facility is sent to Quarantine Road landfill for disposal. And then finally, shown in blue, is the materials recovery facility, the Waste Management Recycle America facility in Elkridge, where curbside recyclables and recyclables collected at residential drop-off centers are sent for recycling. All right, some of the existing recycling and diversion efforts currently managed by the city are shown on this slide. And one thing that I wanted to emphasize here is we are going to be talking in this presentation about waste reduction and waste diversion efforts. So I wanted to kind of clarify what the difference is. So when I talk about waste reduction, I'm talking predominantly about true source reduction, which would include things like helping residents change buying habits, that they actually reduce the amount of waste that they generate. It also includes donation and reuse, which could be anything from giving a piece of what would normally be waste to somebody who can use it, or also reusing that material for art or something else. Whereas diversion, what we're talking about predominantly is recycling or composting. So some of the source reduction and diversion initiatives that are currently offered by the city include the polystyrene and plastic bag ban. These were put into effect in recent years, predominantly to reduce the amount of plastic bags and polystyrene that end up in the waste stream. These materials are harmful to in recycling infrastructure in particular, and they're also single-use items that we would prefer to keep out of the waste stream if possible. The city also manages the recycling can program. Over the last few years, they've distributed about 170,000 recycling cans to single-family residents in single-family homes in the city. There are also several recycling initiatives in city schools, such as the Eco Warriors program, and then also outreach events and social media. So the city has a presence on 5 social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Nextdoor, and LinkedIn. The city also offers curbside recycling services. So currently, those services are offered on a bi-weekly schedule, although the city is trying to move back to a weekly collection schedule as soon as possible. The materials accepted in this program include metal cans, cardboard, glass containers, mixed paper, and plastic bottles and jars. And then finally, looking at the organics diversion and composting programs offered by the city. So the city manages several public education programs promoting grass cycling and at-home composting. And they also offer food scrap collection at residence drop-off centers and at farmers markets. On this next slide, I wanted to go through some of the existing city plans that are incorporated into the solid waste management plan. So starting with the sustainability plan, and I'm really only going to highlight, many of these plans deal with broad aspects of the city, multiple programs, multiple departments, but I'm just going to highlight the components that are relevant to the plan and to the solid waste system. So for example, the Baltimore Sustainability Plan sets a diversion goal of 90% for the city. The next plan that's incorporated into this one is the Climate Action Plan, which not only quantifies existing greenhouse gas emissions associated with the solid waste system, but also sets goals for the city to reduce those emissions. The Baltimore Food Waste and Recovery Strategy has several strategies and programs and initiatives that the city intends to implement, and also sets goals for reducing food wastage in the city for residents, commercial sector, universities, and public schools. The Less Waste, Better Baltimore plan, which was finalized in 2020, is a 20-year plan, master plan for solid waste in the city. It includes several programs, initiatives that include costs, greenhouse gas emissions estimates, benefits, et cetera. And then finally, the Disaster Preparedness and Planning Project, which looks at the interaction between the solid waste system and climate change, both how climate change will impact the solid waste management system, but also how the solid waste management system can be used to help the city prepare for natural disasters. All right, on this slide, we're showing historic recycling rates for the city from 2011 to 2021. I want to emphasize that this plot is showing the state reported recycling rates. So this only looks at certain waste streams, specifically what you might think of as residential waste, things like cardboard, metal cans, organic waste like food waste and yard waste, that kind of thing. It does not include construction and demolition debris, scrap metal, soil, sewage sludge, that kind of stuff. So what I want to highlight on this plot is, first of all, we're showing the recycling rate in black here. The black line shows the recycling rate, whereas the bars show the components of the waste stream that were recycled in any given year. So there are a few trends that I want to point out here. First of all, you'll see that big drop in the recycling rate between 2012 and 2013. This is really just in the way that the state measures recyclables. So prior to 2013, the state was counting ash that was disposed at Quarantine Road landfill as a recycled or reused material. Starting in 2013, that was no longer the case. So you'll see that other bar, which includes things like tires and bulk waste, used to also include ash, but stopped including that in 2013. The other trend that I want to point out here is the general increasing trend between 2013 and 2018. This is mostly due to the city's efforts to improve recycling and diversion in the city. And you'll see there's a blip in 2019 and 2020, mostly attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, but a significant rebound in 2021. So the goal here is, with this solid waste management plan, is to continue that upward trend so that we can meet the state mandated recycling goal of 35% by 2027. And then in this final slide for this section, this just goes through the city's attainment of certain long-term waste goals. So these waste goals are shown in the right two categories. They come from those city plans, planning documents that we mentioned earlier. And shown in the third column in the red and green, that's the city's current recycling rate with respect to these materials. So as you'll see, many of them are red. This means that the city's not currently meeting the goals, which is okay. These are meant to be long-term goals. And many of these planning documents are fairly recent. But what I wanted to highlight here is the particular areas where the city has a big opportunity to improve diversion during this planning period. So first of all, looking at food waste and yard waste, shown in green, where the existing diversion rate is less than 10%, but the goals are 50 to 80%. So there is a big opportunity here for the city to improve, and so that will be one of the focuses of the solid waste management plan and also of this presentation. Also looking at the residential recycling rate. So shown in blue, those are recyclables like plastic, metal cans, glass, cardboard. And the residential recycling rate currently is less than 20%. The goal here is to get that recycling rate over 35%, which is required by the state, but also to meet the long-term goals of 90% set forth by the Less Waste, Better Baltimore plan and the sustainability plan. So with that, we're going to dive into the plan of action. So just a brief overview of the plan. The plan has 6 subsections, the first being waste reduction and diversion. We're going to talk about a lot of that here, so that is going to be the focus of this presentation. We basically break it down in the plan into different waste types, so looking at organic waste, single stream recyclables, which are typically curbside recyclables, construction and demolition debris, which we're not going to get into in this particular presentation, but we have a plan of action for that as well in the solid waste management plan, bulk waste and other waste. The second section deals with the residential drop-off centers, so mostly looking at ways to improve access to those facilities so that more residents can access them, and then also improving and increasing the amount of material that can be collected at those facilities and the amount that can be recycled. So we'll talk briefly about that in this presentation. Third section is on the waste collection system, so looking at ways to improve collection efficiencies for recyclables, waste, street sweeping, etc., all of the services that are offered by the city for waste collection. The fourth section is on waste transfer system, so looking at the existing transfer system, which includes Northwest Transfer Station, as we previously saw, but also looking at ways to improve the existing system so that we can improve transfer efficiency and also collection efficiency in the city. The fifth section deals with waste processing and recycling. So as you may have noted on the slide with the map, the existing recycling facilities used by the city are located predominantly outside of the city. So looking at ways to foster an organic, kind of more local recycling market. Also, there are no large-scale composting facilities currently located in the city. So looking at a plan to get some more large-scale growth in composting. And then finally, in section 6, looking at the waste disposal system. So as highlighted previously, there are currently 2 facilities where waste is disposed in the city. That's Quarantine Road Landfill and the Wind Waste Facility. So looking at, improving the resiliency of that system, how waste is going to be disposed during the planning period and in the future. All right, so this first slide deals with, the next few slides are kind of highlights from the plan. So this slide first deals with improving recycling in the city. So looking at improving recycling single stream recyclables like plastic, paper, metals, glass. So first off, I want to highlight in the top right corner, we have a diversion potential. That's based on the amount of waste that's currently disposed in the city that we believe that during the planning period we can capture and recycle. So we have a diversion potential for recyclables of about 125,000 tons per year. So it's a fairly significant amount and will help us get to that 35% goal and also start meeting those long-term goals in the future. So the plan of action for improving recycling in the city, we broke down into 3 subsections. These are legislative actions, which predominantly deal with ways to improve recycling from the commercial sector. Administrative actions, which are ways that the city can improve recycling among the residents and the commercial sector. And then also programmatic actions, which are more concrete, maybe involve infrastructure development, that kind of thing. So looking specifically at legislative actions, the city plans to support legislation that bans recyclables from disposal in order to increase and put pressure on the commercial sector to increase recycling. The city also plans to support legislation requiring mandatory commercial recycling and reporting. So basically keeping the commercial sector accountable by having them report or improving reporting, and then also improving recycling among the commercial sector. And then finally, supporting legislation that creates enforcement mechanisms for recycling mandates. So there are several state mandates in effect that require recycling of certain items or from certain generators, for example, from apartment buildings or from office buildings. So looking at ways to pass legislation to improve enforcement of those state mandates and also improve recycling from those sectors. Administrative actions included in the plan include improving education and outreach. So that would involve things like fostering behavior change among residents to improve their participation and trust in the existing recycling system. We also have an action item for incentivizing the growth of local recycling markets. So this would be fostering growth of organic recycling markets by helping to match recyclers with businesses that use recycled materials. And then also assessing funding mechanisms for waste diversion initiatives. So basically pursuing a study to try to figure out the best ways to fund waste diversion initiatives in the city that will get the best bang for the buck moving forward during the planning period. Programmatic actions considered in the plan and recommended by the plan include improving recycling in public spaces by offering additional recycling cans in city parks and the like. Also reinstating weekly recycling collection and optimizing collection routes. So it is a priority for the city to return to weekly collection. So there is a plan of action for that highlighted in the solid waste management plan. And then finally, offering green business certification to try to help the commercial sector and businesses improve recycling. All right, this next slide looks at the plan of action for increasing organics diversion in the city. So again, you'll notice there are two numbers in the top right corner, a reduction potential. So this is looking predominantly at food waste and yard waste, how we expect to reduce the amount of waste that's generated in the city. So we have a reduction potential of approximately 25,000 tons per year. And then also a diversion potential. So this would be the amount of material that we think can be collected and sent for composting of about 20,000 tons per year during the planning period. So again, the plan of action for increasing organics diversion is broken into three categories. The first of which is reducing food wastage. So for this section, there are several action items listed, the majority of which are from the Baltimore Food Waste and Recovery Strategy. So really implementing those strategies is key to reducing food wastage in the city. Also improving education and outreach, predominantly around improving buying habits, matching food donors with donation opportunities like the food bank, things like that. And then also supporting state mandates banning food waste disposal. So that's really targeting those commercial generators again to try to improve the amount of, or reduce the amount of food that's wasted from the commercial sector. Secondly, looking at increasing organics diversion efforts. So this starts with encouraging backyard and community composting in the city. The closer to the source that these materials can be recycled, the better. So by encouraging residents to either set up backyard composting if they're capable, or participate in the existing community composting programs in the city, that will help keep this keep the recycling as local as possible. Also initiating a pilot organics collection program. So expanding the existing program from residence drop-off centers to city schools, government buildings, and then potentially moving that to a curbside collection program by rolling that out in different neighborhoods in the city. And then also improving education and outreach about what materials can be composted and which cannot. And then finally, looking at encouraging in-city composting. So as stated previously, there is a lack of large composting facilities, large-scale composting facilities in the city. So the city intends to partner with the private sector or during the planning period to construct in-city composting capacity. The city also plans to set up a training facility for composting where they can offer community workshops and training opportunities to residents, and then also support residents interested in obtaining compost operator certification to help foster that community composting system that's already in place. All right, this slide goes through the emphasis on education and outreach and the ways that the city intends to foster behavior change and improve participation in existing solid waste systems. So first off, looking at community engaged planning. So the city intends to hold community engaged seminars focusing on underserved communities. The goal of these seminars will be to educate residents about the links between zero waste and recycling initiatives with social, environmental, and economic justice and economic and social opportunities and environmental health. They're also meant to poll residents about what the barriers are to participation in these recycling programs so that we can identify opportunities for the city to improve, and then also to foster group initiatives to commit to participating in recycling programs. The city also intends to set up a zero waste coalition between residents, the city, and local businesses to foster zero waste thinking and zero waste initiatives at the local level. Also, as part of improving education and outreach, the city is looking to improve resource development and strategic messaging. So this includes developing and distributing guides for hard-to-recycle materials, food waste, donation and food waste reduction, and also a reuse directory for different materials in the city. The city also intends to develop a 4-part educational module on recycling and reuse for public schools that will use game-based learning methods and prizes to encourage excuse me, students to participate in recycling programs. And then also developing a community-based social marketing campaign to look at ways to improve behavior change in the community and improve diversion. And then finally, the city intends to set up and develop workshops such as repair clinics, circular cooking classes, community recycling sorts, creative reuse classes, and composting workshops to improve residential participation. All right, so you may be wondering, where does this get us? So I showed this plot previously. It only included 2011 through 2021, so that's what's shown on the left-hand side. So what we're hoping, and this plan of action is intended to do, is increase recycling rates over the planning period. So that's shown with the dashed line, and also the components of those recyclables are shown with the bars again. And this comes from those diversion potentials that we highlighted on the earlier slides. But basically what we anticipate is the city can meet the 35% recycling goal set forth by the state by 2027, and a recycling rate of 45% by the end of the planning period in 2033. Excuse me. All right, so now looking at waste collection in the city. So first of all, looking at recycling. So it is extremely important to the city that we get back to weekly recycling collection. And the way that the city intends to do that is, first of all, by updating equipment, so purchasing additional vehicles and maintaining the existing truck fleet, and also by working on improving worker retention. So this includes not only improving retention of existing workers, but hiring additional workers so that we can reinstate a weekly collection of recyclables. The city also intends to improve residents' drop-off centers by improving access and also increasing the amount of materials that can be collected at those facilities, and also improving education and outreach as highlighted on the previous slide, but also specifically for the curbside recycling program to allow residents to know what is and is not recyclable. For trash collection in the city, similar action items here include updating existing equipment and improving worker retention to improve the efficiency and access of trash collection in the city. Also supporting waste reduction initiatives. So as highlighted earlier, by improving waste diversion, we can reduce the amount of waste that's actually thrown out in the city. So we reduce the amount that's collected curbside, which can improve the efficiency of the system. And then finally, also improving education and outreach with respect to trash collection, including the proper ways to bag and set out trash on the street. And then finally, looking at litter and illegal dumping. So the city has a 4-part plan to reduce litter and illegal dumping in the city during the planning period, starting with improving cleanup. So by improving response time, the city intends to clean up litter and illegal dumping more quickly. Also engaging the local community members to both build trust in the existing solid waste system and also improve reporting of illegal dumping and litter so that the city can get out there faster and clean it up. Third step would be improving reporting and enforcement. So that involves both working with local community members to improve reporting, but also punishing the bad actors who are responsible for litter and illegal dumping in the city. And then finally, supporting vulnerable communities. Vulnerable communities often bear the brunt of litter and illegal dumping in the city. So by working with them and focusing on those communities, the city intends to improve equity with respect to litter and illegal dumping during the planning period. All right, and then on this final slide, we have some of the highlights related to improving waste disposal and transfer. So looking first at waste disposal, as highlighted earlier, the city really only has 2 options in city for disposing of waste. That is the Quarantine Road landfill and the wind waste facility. So the first step here is to expand the Quarantine Road landfill, which is set to run out of capacity sometime in the 2020s. So by expanding it, we can improve the service life of that facility as long as possible. Also improving landfill operations to improve the efficiency of the existing landfill. But really the main effort here for waste disposal in the future and over the planning period and for past the planning period is to improve waste diversion efforts. As highlighted previously, improving waste diversion reduces the amount of waste that's disposed, which can lead to longer service lives for the existing facilities in the city, specifically the landfill, and also reducing reliance on disposal as a way to manage solid waste. Also worth highlighting here is that the existing contract with Win Waste expires in 2031. And so also by improving waste diversion efforts, the city can reduce reliance on that facility as well. Looking at waste transfer, so the city currently operates one transfer facility, Northwest Transfer Station. However, there is no room to expand that transfer station, and it really serves predominantly the northwest portion of the city. So the city does intend to expand transfer capacity by looking at the east and southern portions of the city to build an additional transfer station that will improve the efficiency of waste collection. And then also by having additional transfer capacity, the city does kind of build resiliency with respect to solid waste disposal and transfer for the future. And with that, I just wanted to briefly thank everyone for all of the comments that we've received. They've been very helpful, and we look forward to the comments that we received tonight. All right, with that, I'll hand it back to Faith.
Thank you so much, Sean. All right. Next slide. So now we're going to go over a little bit and highlight a little bit about community input thus far, as well as next steps. So as part of this process, DPW has hosted 5 meetings, including this one tonight. These meetings have included 2 of which were hybrid, including this meeting, whereas the other 3 were virtual. Recordings for these past meetings will be provided on the webpage as shown at the bottom of the slide. Next slide, please. So just a few highlights of engagement. For the first 4 meetings hosted, we identified attendees from 18 of the 31 zip codes within the city. This is represented by the pink flags that you'll see on the map to your right. I just want to note first that this map only shows 1 flag per zip code, where at least 1 member showed up at a meeting in the past, not including this meeting. It's not representative of individuals, and also is not representative of all the places we've received feedback. So I just want to note that here. Next slide, please. And as part of this process, DPW has engaged with multiple entities, which are listed on the slide, the first of which is city agency contacts. So as part of this process, DPW has worked with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, the Office of Sustainability, Planning Commission, and the Department of Planning. As part of this collaboration, DPW has provided them with information that was included in newsletters, as well as information to be passed on into social media posts, as well as select agencies requested presentations, and those presentations were provided. The next is community outreach. So as I've already noted, we have had 5 meetings that were public. There was also a water bill insert that went out towards the beginning of this plan update. There have been 6 press releases. There have also been other engagement activities like the Grow Center pop-ups. There have been other outreaches like to the Casa de Maryland, and all Enoch Pratt Library branches received flyers and other information. In addition, our community associations, all 365 of them received flyers and other information, as well as all the resident advisory council members and all of the community relations commission presidents received information. So as we mentioned earlier, as of April 10th, DPW has received and reviewed 559 comments. I just wanted to provide a quick breakdown of those comments. So DPW has received them, and as part of that process, they have put them into very general categories. So to go over them with you this evening, the first major category where we received 111 pieces of feedback, which are comments or questions, was in the programmatic category, so more overarching feedback points. And then the second highest category was environmental or equity concerns. The next was administrative feedback, which was around 60, and then rounding us out was legislation or code feedback. I will note that we have many other categories, but just wanted to highlight a few for this evening. And we can go to the next slide. So timeline, so what happens next? So as noted before, tonight at 11:59 will be the cutoff for receiving feedback. So that is the big ticket item there. The next will be in May, when the plan will be submitted to the state. On May 15th, DPW will be providing the draft as submitted to the state, as well as the comment themes that they received, and some information about the process for the solid waste management plan. So that will be posted on the webpage. In August, we expect to receive a response from the state. And in December, it will be submitted to the mayor and city council for formal adoption. In January, the plan will go into effect. I also want to note here that the plan will be reviewed and updated every 3 years in accordance with Maryland regulations. And the webpage will be the best place to look to receive updates regarding this plan as we go through this whole process. So as you have questions or as you look for further information, the webpage will be your best bet for finding that information. So as noted before, tonight will be the deadline for receiving that feedback, so please use this QR code to provide that feedback on the plan directly on the webpage. If you would like to read the plan as it currently stands in draft form, that is also on the webpage. There is also a frequent questions and comment section. I know that we've received hundreds of comments during this process, and we, because just of the magnitude and working on the plan, all those comments have not been answered, but I would point you towards the webpage. It has a lot of great answers and responses, and that will continue to be updated and will be updated on the 15th. So please scan that code for that. There's also an email address that you can use on that last slide. If we can go back to that last slide real quick, there's that avenue that you can use. And during this process, I do want to highlight that we've had a mailing address previously, so those that will be received by tonight will also be included, as well as those that were posted directly on the draft. Next slide, please. So please stay tuned. Like I said, DPW will be posting the draft as it was submitted to the state, as well as an overview of the solid waste management plan development process, and we'll also include an updated comment section to be included. So please keep an eye out on the webpage. Next slide, please. So I just want to highlight community resources. If you have general questions about city services or other non-plan related questions, please dial 311 to reach a city operator for assistance. If you require additional support related to current city services, and please reach out to the community liaison for your district. And for those joining us tonight in person, I do want to note that we are in District 5, and so the liaison for this district is Dr. Nunley, and you can reach them at 410-545-3542. So that would be the appropriate liaison to reach out to, and is listed first on the table. Next slide, please. So now we are going to get to the testimonial portion of our evening. So we just have a few notes to be included there. So if you would like to provide a verbal testimony and you are joining on WebEx, please raise your hand using the hand icon, and you will be given a verbal notification when you are up next. When it is your turn, you will receive a notification to unmute yourself. If you would like to provide a written testimony, please use the chat feature. Please note that you are limited to 1,000 characters, so you may need to message multiple times to submit your full testimony. I also want to note that if you are joining us in person, a testimonial option was included in the sign-in process. If you check this option, you will be called on accordingly. If you did not check this option during sign-in, there may be time at the end, depending on the volume received during testimonies. So we will have further instructions on that as we get to it. Also, if you are dialing in with us this evening, please press the *3 button on your device to raise your hand, and you will receive a notification that you are up next using the first 6 digits of your call-in number. At that time, you will be prompted to unmute yourself when it is your turn, and you can do so by hitting the *6 button on your device. And as a reminder, all testimonies will be limited to 2 minutes. You will be given a 10-second grace period, after which you will be muted. And also as a reminder that questions included in testimonies will not be answered at this time to allow for the maximum number of comments to be received for this plan. So I appreciate everyone's time this evening and everyone's comments thus far. And now I will turn it over to Amanda with Gavin, who will facilitate the testimonial portion of this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We will be alternating back and forth between in-person testimony and virtual testimony. So I want to call the first person to the in-person testimony, which will be over there at the table. And then virtually participants can raise their hand, and the first person raising their hand, it'll be called on in accordance of raised hands. So the first person to testify in person is Councilperson Schleifer, if they'd like to make their way up to the testimony. Okay, I'll just cue you. Yeah. Okay. There will be a 2-minute time for testimony for virtual participants. We'll give you about a 15-second grace period to unmute. After the 2-minute testimony runs out, we will give you about a 10-second grace period. I'll wrap you up just by saying thank you. Your microphone will be muted if need be if you go over that 10-second grace period. So please try to adhere to that. All right, your time will begin when you do.
All right, thank you very much. I first want to start off by thanking the DPW staff for putting on this meeting, and thank you to all the residents and community leaders for coming out to this successful event, a large turnout. My comments on the plan is that this plan needs to make significant investments in our DPW employees and our frontline workers, the hardworking men and women of DPW who are out there every single day, whether it's raining, snowing. They are out there during a global pandemic, and this plan needs to have significant historic investments, both in raises for them, but as well as in equipment and supplies for those employees. Any money that is geared towards cleaning should be going directly to that and not being diverted anywhere else. And lastly, I want to make a comment on the recycling collections. Recycling has been down in 2022, last year, and it's important that we resume weekly curbside collections so that we can see those recycling numbers trending in the right direction to reach the goals set forth. But in addition to that, also to alleviate the burden from the workers who are picking up 2 weeks' worth at once as opposed to every week, which would be significantly less collections for them. And so thank you for your time. Thank you everybody for coming out. And you got an extra 30 seconds.
Thank you. Every second counts, right? The virtual participant that is up next is Andy Hins. Andy, I'm going to request to unmute you in just a second. Oh, you can't hear me? In the back? I don't have control. If you could let me know, that'd be great. Andy, you're the next virtual participant, and I will request to unmute you in a second. The next in person is Mark Hart. So if you want to make your way up, you'll be the next in person. Okay, great. So Andy, I'm sending a request to unmute you right now. Andy, I'm sending a request to unmute you. You are unmuted and your time will begin when you do.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? My name is Andrew Hins. I live on 1427 Park Avenue, and I want to thank
I'm
DP.
seeing Andy's closed captioning, but not hearing him. Are we hearing him in the back?
I'm sorry, can you hear me or no?
Andy, I cannot hear you. I want to ensure that we are. So if you could just hold on, we will not start your time. We'll get this sorted.
Okay.
Sure. Andy, I'm going to mute you while we figure out the virtual testimony, and we're going to do some in-person testimony. So please hold. Thank you. Yes. The team is working on it, so we'll get to it as soon as they figure it out. For now, though, if we could have Mark make his way to the in-person. Go ahead. And yeah. And then if we could get the timer to start when Mark does, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I want to first of all thank Ms. Megan for the big package that I picked up as I came in today. Thank you. I like the plan. I like what I heard. But I want to point out something on page 27, specifically the section on litter and illegal dumping. Much of the time, I ride buses on the MTA. And I will tell you, I've seen this firsthand, and I've heard occasional something from the illegal dumping. Sometimes when I'm riding the bus, for example, there will be people actually, I've seen this. Even though the bus does have camera, audio, and visual attachments to it, I don't know what they do with it because it's after the fact. I've seen people actually dumping trash outside the bus window, and occasionally when the bus stops and they open up the back door, people to a light in the back door. Sometimes I've seen people throwing trash out the back way. They're turning the street into a trash can. Unfortunately, on one occasion, I saw somebody throw a glass out through the open door. I heard it crash. That's where I heard audio situation. So my concern is, and the bus driver is busy driving the bus, so they have to be safety focused. And of course, I can't say anything because I want to make sure my eyeglasses stay in one piece. Okay? So what I'm suggesting is that somehow, if it's not been mentioned earlier, to work with MTA as far as enforcement of litter, as far as safety for everybody, both on the bus and people passers-by who may be walking by, and Gesundheit. And hopefully they do not get hit or anything, or could be lawsuits against MTA and the city. So I just want to tell you, I've seen this, and I know what I'm talking about, and we want to have a nice city, nice bus ride, nice neighborhood setting. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see good results on bus riding. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. We're going to do another in-person testimony. You think it might work? Okay, we're going to test the virtual testimony. Andy, your hand is still raised. I'm requesting to unmute you.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me now?
Andy, could you test talking?
Yes, can you hear me now? Yeah, I'm talking, but it seems like you still can't hear me.
I cannot hear you, Andy. I apologize.
Yeah, maybe you should test somebody else.
There's going to be feedback from my microphone if I do that. All right. Next to the in-person testimony is Michael Smith. Michael, if you could make your way to the in-person testimony. Is Michael Smith still here and interested in testifying? Going once? Michael Smith? Okay. I apologize if I say your first name wrong, but Zaidslali? Is that Xitlali? Hi. If you could make your way to the stand, you are the next in person. While she's walking over, I did want to mention if you have any mobility needs, if you would like to, when we get to the end, and if you'd like to raise your hand, we can bring a microphone to you for testimony. Are we ready with the timer? Yep. Okay. Your time will begin when you do. Great.
Hi everyone, my name is Sita Olivia. I live in 223, so Union Square. I don't really have too many problems with the plan. Just really want to emphasize technical assistance support for if we're going with the green business designation. So tax incentives, particularly for smaller businesses, so folks can feel like they're a part of this initiative. And identifying businesses that are doing like a waste management good. So if folks are recycling textiles, old clothing to make like mops and scrubs and all that kind of, and what do you call it, sponges, to really support those kinds of businesses. And then just with compost, there's community organizations. So, you know, I know that there was conversation about expanding composting programs. I really think that we should incorporate the organizations that are already doing it. So Baltimore Compost Collective in South Baltimore, I don't know if anyone knows about them, but just to really connect with the folks already doing the work. And then just the last thing I wasn't really happy to hear about. So again, I live in Union Square, the Wheelabrator, Baltimore's #2 for asthma in the whole nation. And we really cannot rely on that. And they essentially bullied the city to redo a contract with them. So, and who owns Wheelabrator is Waste Management, and they do citywide composting in San Francisco. So there's something that's like, it doesn't measure up, it doesn't add up. And if they can do citywide composting in San Francisco, why do they have to burn trash here? I think we should like really negotiate that kind of contract. So those are the things that stuck out to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Andy, we are going to try again. Third time is the charm. I'm going to request to unmute you.
Yes, can you hear me the third time?
Andy, please test.
Yes, I'm talking now. Can you hear me?
No, I'm sorry, Andy, I cannot hear you yet. 1 second. Do you want me to mute my mic and unmute the laptop I'm on? Okay. Which one is yours? Megan, which one's yours? Is it listed as you?
Oh, no, it's not. It's one of these. I'll raise my hand.
Okay.
Raise your hand.
Podium laptop?
Yeah, no, the hand should be raised.
It's right here.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess that's it.
Andy, could you test again?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Still not working. Yes, no?
Try one more time.
Andy, could you please try one more time?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Andy, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Shall I start?
So you're just gonna have to mute
Mine was muted. Okay. Yes, Andy, your time will start when you do. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you so much for the hard work in the plan. But because we have a health emergency, in my opinion, in South Baltimore caused by the wind waste facility, MIT study has shown 800 premature deaths per year are caused by that facility, and a more recent study has shown $55 million per year in local health cost impacts. In my mind, that's a health emergency that the city needs to take care of. And this plan, if it does not commit to stopping that health emergency, is severely compromised. And it's a shame for all the rest of the hard work to be compromised in that way. In addition to the $55 million and the 800 premature deaths, I hope you understand that, the communities to the south and east of this have over 70 permitted polluting facilities where they live. That is a lot of cumulative harm. And that's one other reason that the city must commit in this plan to ceasing using that facility. It is actually environmental racism for us to continue to use that facility, and there's no other way to get around it. So I urge you to commit in this plan to ending the health crisis that is being caused by this pollution. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Andy. All right, we got Andy. Good. In person is next, and Marion, you are up next for an in-person testimony. Marion, yes.
Hello, everyone. I love to take walks in my neighborhood, which is near the cross-country brook. But I have to say that the trash on the grass on both sides of cross-country is really, I sometimes measure how long it is between pickups, and sometimes it's 3 months, 4 months. And I think that trash should be on the grass, as well as trash in the street. But there used to be a community cleanup, and I don't think that has happened since the pandemic. But the community shouldn't be the ones who have to clean up. I think the city should come and clean up. And take down the dead trees, and take the ivy off the trees that are there's so much ivy that's strangling trees. There's so many dead trees because of the ivy that's never been tended to. I don't know if that's part of your department. But it's a beautiful little area, and it should be maintained.
We are next going to go to another virtual testimony with Dawn McCleary. Are we prepared in the back to unmute?
Yes.
I'll send you a request.
You can send a request.
All right, Dawn, I'm sending you a request to unmute. Dawn, could you test?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having this wonderful last hearing for the whole 10-year plan. My question is, actually my comment is, a couple years ago, I was working with my senator, Antonio Hayes, trying to get some recycling of sharps and needles for people who are diabetic. Problem is, there needs to be a better way to come up with a plan so people don't dispose of their sharps and needles in the trash down the toilet. It's probably disposed of like the health departments and the hospitals. And I put my comment in the report. I just want to see a better way for residents to be able to dispose of their diabetic needles or sharps. And I guess that people who use them for other things, because putting in the trash and in the water system doesn't work. And that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. The next in person is Sir James Weaver, if you'd like to make your way.
Good evening, everybody. Sir James, I'm an environmental justice organizer with Progressive Maryland. I'm happy to be here. I first want to say that my organization, as well as some of the other constituents that signed up for this hearing, had some issues tuning into the virtual link. And I think that the kitchen sink was missed there. I just want to point that out. And I've also heard that some of the people in the Zoom or the virtual link, they can hear others that are speaking. However, you all cannot hear them. So hopefully the next time that's cleared up. So I'm responding to the Briscoe incinerator comments in the 10-year draft plan. As this contract is set to expire at the end of 2031, there is no end game for this incinerator. And according to a 2023 state air quality report, it shows that the incinerator is among the top 10 ozone polluters for Baltimore, including point and non-point sources. It generates more ozone pollution than lawn maintenance equipment. And this is a report that is sent to the EPA by the Maryland Department of the Environment. It's a non-attainment zone. And the area has been labeled more polluted than the national ambient air pollution statistics. That's appalling. So you have scholarly expert research that is claiming that this incinerator is highly toxic and it's 4 times as dirty as coal. It has to go. And the community members that I am organizing and I'm educating, I'm going to continue to tell them about this incinerator and activate them. And they're going to move up and take leadership, and they're going to put this on Front Street. This thing got to go. They are not roaches. They are not insects. They are human beings.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I also think we should have another hearing, because this one wasn't sufficient enough because people weren't able to come to testify today we heard today. So I think it should be another one done.
Virtually up next, we have Ricardo. Ricardo is the next virtual participant with a hand raised. That is the last hand that's raised virtually, so I just want to take a second to remind you that if you want to raise your hand virtually, it's *3, and then to unmute, it's *6 if you are calling in. If you want to raise your hand, there is an icon if you're viewing us on a laptop. Ricardo, I'm sending you a request now to unmute. Megan, I'm also sending you a request.
¿Escucharme?
Ricardo, please begin.
Sí, hola. Voy a necesitar apoyo con traducción. No sé si es posible.
Ricardo, can you please test?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sí, claro. It's possible to have interpretation. Hola, ¿me pueden escuchar?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sí, puede escuchar.
Sure. That's
So
a
if he
separate.
speaks now, there's interpretation that will, into English that we will hear on the floor.
Ricardo, as you're speaking, there's interpretation that will capture your testimony.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias. Voy a comenzar con mi testimonio. Buena tarde, mi nombre es Ricardo Ortiz, vivo en Silburn, en el vecindario de Silburn, y estoy muy contento de estar en este espacio. Agradezco mucho que es un espacio bilingüe y que nos tomen en cuenta. Yo quiero poner mi comentario en el sentido de los residuos. Donde yo vivo hay varios residuos que dejan las personas, principalmente eh, artefactos como refrigeradores, colchones, y me preocupa bastante esto porque normalmente las personas solemos limpiar el área, pero al segundo día ya hay este tipo de situación. Escuché que en sus estrategias está esto, pero si escuché bien o entendí bien, va más en el sentido de sanciones y me gustaría que en lugar de sanciones hubiera un cambio más informativo y que se pudiera compartir con la comunidad, porque en la actualidad existen sanciones para las personas y esto no está funcionando. Entonces necesitamos hacer algo como educar en las escuelas. Al final los niños y las niñas de estas escuelas van a salir adelante, van a crecer y van a ser quienes van a cambiar la situación de nuestra ciudad. Y ya por último, agradezco mucho que este espacio sea en español y aprovechando que hay concejales ahí, me gustaría que tomaran como ejemplo estas conversaciones y que nos apoyen con información en nuestro idioma. En la actualidad no existe por parte de los concejales esta información en nuestro idioma y en Falstaff hay una gran comunidad hispana que necesita ser atendida por sus representantes y esto sería excelente si pueden impulsarlo. Agradezco mucho el espacio y también reconozco mucho el trabajo que hace el departamento. Yo no tengo ninguna queja, al contrario, muchos agradecimientos por todo el trabajo que han hecho en esta época de pandemia, las personas que salen a recoger nuestra basura. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
And we have interpreters that'll get that later.
Yes. So we have interpreters that are in the background logging and capturing, just so you know. And then the person that is recording the testimony from tonight is also bilingual. So that will be captured in its entirety. I know the closed captioning you were seeing here was not accurate. That was just being captured by the WebEx system, not by the interpreters. The next in-person testimony is Ella Scobins. Could you make your way to the podium, please? Oh, mobility, great. Could somebody provide? Thank you. We will bring it to you, Ella.
She has passed on.
Oh, I apologize. All right. The next in person is Veronica Bell. Veronica, if you'd like to make your way to. Veronica Bell is the next in person testimony. Okay, thank you. Let's go to a virtual testimony. Megan, are you ready to unmute? Yes. Okay. Kamal, you are the next virtual testimony. I'm sending you a request to unmute.
Here with Progressive Maryland, and a local.
Your time will start when you do.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Kamal, it
Can you hear
looks
me now?
like you muted yourself. I just unmuted you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. He just muted himself again. 1 second.
There seems to be some sort of delay. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Ah, wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. I am also a volunteer with Progressive Maryland. I just wanted to reiterate the need to have some language in the agreement to retire the wind waste facility. We know that that organization does have an incentive to try and keep these facilities open and to limit the amount of waste over long term that will be diverted into these other areas. We know that, as was pointed out by previous participants, this is a big health issue for the community, and there should be language in here to codify the fact that this facility will be retired and efforts will be made to completely move that kind of facility out of the area, as well as retiring other facilities of that nature in the surrounding counties. The state administration has pointed out the fact that facilities like this and our renewable energy goals do not align. These facilities directly conflict with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that the administration has preached to back, and the Science-Backed Targets Initiative. These facilities currently receive renewable energy credits, and the people of the community do not want to have to be subsidizing their own demise, not only through financing dirty air and dirty waste generation, but also by subsidizing energy sources that contribute negatively towards climate change impacts. So that should be a priority in the language of this waste management plan, and retiring similar facilities should be a priority for the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next in person is Christopher Irvin. Christopher, if you could make your way to the podium.
How's this?
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
I just had a couple of comments as a 20-year professional in the waste industry and a resident of this district in Baltimore City. One of the things I wanted to point out is I think that we forget the impact of COVID on our trash and recycle collection. In case many of you don't know, this is not the easiest or the cleanest or safest job to do. We forget that COVID was a global pandemic where people were afraid to be in proximity to each other. And this job called for 3 people to sit in a truck all day. And so one yard was closed because people refused to come to work. How many of us were going to volunteer to do this job? So there was absolutely a shortage, but it was driven by a global pandemic. And then we got a new director of an agency that came in during that. So I just think that sometimes we should move with grace and be mindful of what that global pandemic did to the entire world and not just Northwest Baltimore. And I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Virtually, Raja, you are the next person with your hand raised. I'm sending a request to unmute you now. You're unmuted. Could you please test?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for allowing us to give public comment on this plan. My name is Regia Camfor. I am a artist, a community activist and leader and teacher in Baltimore. I was able to give a little bit of feedback on the document, and I'm also going to email you my plan for the plan. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the concerns I had about the plan in regards to how exactly people are going to be held accountable for illegal dumping, because there is a statement that talks a little bit about increasing enforcement efforts for illegal dumping, but I wonder what that would consist of, because I know I would have some concern if that would entail the increasing of policing in the community, because I don't think that should be another priority in the community, is increasing policing. And I also have some concerns about where exactly funding would come from in order to do some of these initiatives in the community, as every year the budget for the police increases and all of the programs that we ask for funding to be going towards, it continues to be diminished. So my question or concern for this would be, where is the funding exactly going to be coming from to incentivize these programs for community engagement and enacting this policy for businesses to be incentivized in order to align themselves with more of a clean action program. So that's all.
Thank you. At this time, we have one more person in person who would like to testify, and we have no hands raised virtually. So if you would like to testify, please raise your hand. All right, in person, Midial, great. Are you Midial? Marvin. Okay. M-I-T-I-A-L?
M-I-K-L, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Handwriting.
Yeah.
And then we will have an opportunity afterwards to raise hands if anyone has changed their mind and would like to testify in person.
How y'all doing? My name is Mikkel Rashid. I'm here on behalf of Progressive Maryland. I live in Cherry Hill, and I'm downwind of the pollution from the incinerator plant. And actually, I had family that lives in a few other waste-to-energy plants that were mentioned in the document here. And I was actually kind of disturbed by just the general lack of information on the subject, one way or the other, and disturbed by the general lack of seeming concern for the environmental impact of these facilities. As was stated by Sir James, the contract for the city expires in 2031. Why do we not have any sort of concrete plan in place to move ourselves off of this energy, off of this form of energy production and waste management by then? And another thing is, I was recently diagnosed about a week ago with asthma after living in Cherry Hill for 6 years. I grew up in Pasadena. Clean air is clean down there. Only thing the doctor can tell me is it was most likely caused by pollution. Another thing is groundwater pollution because of air pollution. That's something that's not talked about a lot. Particulate matter from the air, it rains, it seeps into the ground, it seeps into the groundwater, which then seeps into your pipes, and then you drink that on top of the water pollution that's already there, a lot of which is also caused by our waste disposal. That's also nothing mentioned in these documents about any of that either. So I would just like to have something in there. I'm frankly a little bit agitated as a member of the community. I would like to have something concrete speaking about our waste to energy and moving away from that. I know that's something that's very important. I hear a lot about it from Waste Management themselves as a company. I hear about it from the media. I know the city has contracts with media companies to promote moving away from the waste to energy plants, but then you get to the city planning and there's nothing there. So,
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate your time. Virtually, Heidi. Heidi, you are the next virtual person with their hand raised. I'm going to send a request to unmute you. Could you please test, Heidi?
Yes, can you hear? Oh, I'm still muted. I'm still muted.
You are not muted.
I'm not mute. You can hear?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. First, thank you for the plan. Lots of it sounds very good. I do have one thing I would like to bring up about. I don't know if you covered like the street sweeping that in the smaller neighborhoods or the outskirts neighborhoods that you have it once a month on each side of the street. But it's problematic and that the scheduling of the trash pickup and the street sweeping seems to be on the same day, and that doesn't work. I don't know if you can plan more about the scheduling of that sort of thing, because people have their trash cans in the street, could be multiple cans, and even if they put it on the curb, uh, when the DPW employees empty it, they don't necessarily put them back onto the curb. And if the street sweeper hasn't come by, um, the street can't be cleaned. That's one thing, the scheduling of the cleaning. The other thing is people forget, because that just happens once a month. It's not like an odd and even day kind of thing. It's an odd and even side of the road, but people forget once a month that they shouldn't, or maybe they weren't even aware that they shouldn't park on that side of the street that's getting cleaned. And maybe you can set up a reminder system, like in the phones, have each community in one set of phone calls to be reminded the day before or something, that people can be reminded not to park on that side of the street. So if you can do something, that would help. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. All right, next up in person, we have Marvin Briscoe. Oh, 1 second. Try again. I just want to make sure.
Good evening, everyone. I just moved in a Pine Road, Grove Park Improvement Association about 6 to 7 months ago, and I'm very proud about my neighborhood. The alleys are clean. DPW does a good job taking out our trash, helping us with our recycle. The other day we were involved with the mayor cleanup. We put out our trash and tires in 2 locations, and I'm pretty sure they're gone now. So I'm new, I'm enjoying myself. I just became part of the association, and I just want to sing about what's going on in Grove Park. DPW, thank you, appreciate it, everything you're doing, and thank you for listening.
That was the...
One last thing. I kind of believe in, is it on? I'm kind of into the self-help type of thing. In our neighborhood, I don't wait for DPW. It's not too large. I get my neighbors together like we did the other day. I just got there, but I got a broom. I came out the mayor cleanup, and we cleaned up things. So I believe in self-help. This is just a community. I start with my house, and then I branch out. So by the time we talking and fussing and doing this and that, we could be cleaning up the mess in our neighborhood, making it clean ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last person signed up. So if you would like to give in person, we're going to do the one virtual participant first, and then we'll open it up to in person. Okay? One more virtual. Jennifer, your hand is raised. I'm sending a request to unmute you. You are unmuted. Could you please test?
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
We can hear you.
All right, thank you so much. My name's Jennifer Kunze. I'm with Clean Water Action, and I live in McElderry Park. And there's a lot of good elements in this plan, but there's a good bit missing too. And when it comes together, it still falls short of the minimum necessary to fulfill Mayor Scott's promises around zero waste in the trash incinerator. This does not set us on the path to fulfill Mayor Scott's very specific, explicit promises not to allow the city to sign another contract to send trash to Bresco in some really specific ways. I'll just name one on page 144, where we have a table summary of proposed changes to the waste system. It says that we'll have no change in the disposal of municipal solid waste. And if we're following Mayor Scott's promises, there will be a change of no longer sending trash to Bresco after 2031. So that absolutely must be revised to reflect that before the plan is sent to MDE. Then throughout the plan, timelines and tonnages need to be more ambitious in support of this goal. So for example, the city's reduction and diversion goal for commercial food waste is only 50%, far too low. And then the plan says the city can only achieve 30% of that during the planning period. And that really doesn't match up when the plan also says that the city intends to pass a total ban on commercial organics disposal in the city. There's a mismatch here, a disconnect, and a lack of specificity that's troubling. And then finally, and similarly in the recycling section, it says that the recycling reduction goal is 0%, which really doesn't make sense. There's reduction tactics discussed later in the plan, but failing to separate these out, and ideally by commodity, because what's possible and what's a best practice is going to look really different by recycling commodity, really means that the goals in this plan are not going to be as useful as they could be to actually implement. And so finally, just want to see a lot of revisions and improvements in this plan in order to fulfill Mayor Scott's promises to not renew the incinerator contract in 2031. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I believe there was one hand raised for in person.
Good evening, everyone. I am Pastor Randall. I represent one of the neighborhood associations in this community, in the Park Heights community. We say kudos to DPW, Dr. Nunley, for all the great work that we get in this area. A couple of things we need to look at, and I saw it in the plan, and I want to make sure that I voice it. One, education is very important. And if we are not educating our people on, or our residents, on what goes in the trash can, what goes in recycling, it makes it very hard for DPW and trash collection to do their job. So I'm asking that they would link up with all the neighborhood association presidents, come to our meetings on a regular. We should not have to invite you. You should be a staple in the meeting. You know when our meetings are, and talk about those things. Also, in our community, as the young lady said, street sweeping for residents have ceased in this area, completely ceased. They've even come around and took down the signs in some of the neighborhoods. And my inquiry of that, they said they didn't even know that it was happening, but it never came back. So we're asking if all neighborhoods, just like in Johns Hopkins and Hampton and all of those other areas, have street sweeping, we want street sweeping back in Park Heights in the 21215 zip code. And to go the next step further, we want them to work with DOT, that when people are not moving their vehicles, when they know it's supposed to be moved, then we need to make sure that they get cited. Because it is a problem, and people will not come out the house, they will not move their cars, and it is a big issue that we don't get that side of the street, because we have a lot of seniors in the area, and they're doing the work themselves because the trucks don't come, and that's a shame. So we're asking for DPW to continue to work with us and bring back street sweeping, bring back real education, not pop up every now and then, but pop up at every meeting so that our residents can be educated and we can help ourselves in this situation. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Additional testimony in person? Yep. Okay. And then 1 and 1. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joyce Sanders. I just want to say that there's not enough education to all of the residents, not just in this community, but throughout the city. This is part of a health problem with the trash and stuff that we live with. And it's not just in one neighborhood, it's in many neighborhoods. And I think that there need to be some more infomercials on the television, because a lot of people that should be here are not here. Am I right? You all are here because you care, but a lot of people that want to maybe here can't get here. So I think something needs to be done to get out more information to everybody. You do infomercials about cigarettes not smoking, you do infomercials about liquor and all of that. Why not put some more on the television? This is what'll happen if you don't pick up the trash. This is what'll happen if you don't take care of it right. This is what will happen if you don't put it in the proper can. And you know, some people don't even care about recycling. They got to know the importance of recycling. It is, I'm a stickler for it, even in my household. My sister can tell you, don't put that in there. I'll go in the trash can and pull it out. It is important. I see in California, they pay the residents to bring recycle in. So, I mean, if we have to do that, whatever's necessary, it's where we live. Why don't we take care of where we live? We don't want to live in filth. We don't want to live with rats. We don't want to live in dirt. Let's recycle and take care of where we live so it can be decent. Is that all right, everybody?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to take 3 more in-person testimony before we conclude this evening's meetings. So there was a hand raised in the middle. Yes, and then 1 more here, and then if there's 1 more person.
Good evening. My name is Minerva Eaton. I'm president of Hilltop 4100 Neighborhood Association. I would just like to say the partnership that we established with DPW is superb. We couldn't have Hilltop 4100 in this state, not unless we do have this partnership with them. At the meetings, they are there. If we have a problem with trash, all I have to do is pick up the phone and call. We had Earth Day Saturday. The mayor's cleanup was Saturday. And I tell you, Mr. Jonathan, who was assigned to our area, he went beyond what he was supposed to do. We had a difficult house, and we had dumpsters 4 times a year. And he was just so adamant about cleaning up his backyard. But Saturday, when we had Earth Day and the mayor's cleanup, Mr. Jonathan rode through the alley, and he said, "Would you like to have this removed?" And he said, "Are you going to stay here so we can do that?" And he said, "Yes." And we helped this gentleman and his wife, they're seniors, to clean out that backyard. That's a partnership. And as you say, we have to take it upon ourselves to live and to do and keep our area clean. If you have a problem, this is where the partnership comes in. Miss Yolanda Winkler, I can name a whole lot of Kedrick, a whole lot of them who have serviced our area. And kudos to them, and I hope and pray that, no, I'm not going to say it, you need a bonus. You need a bonus. Because all I have to do is pick up the phone and they are there. Yes. Pick it up. If your association does not have the partnership like we do, they're just a phone call away. We have the emergency over here. He's not responding. Okay. Oh, wow. So I would like to thank DPW.
Kara? log off. Thank you for joining us virtually. This will conclude tonight's session.